Welcome to That's Why We're Friends.
The podcast where we laugh a lot, talk about real life, and hold on to faith through it all.
We're two friends navigating the oldish season of life and celebrating the kind of friendships that make it all a little easier.
So whether you're feeling overwhelmed, hopeful, or just need a laugh, this podcast is for you.
Pull up a chair and join the conversation.
Sarah.
Hey, Kara.
How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you? Any new gadgets in your life?
Oh, yeah. You know, there's always, when you have already kind of this technical difficulty in all things related to technology, which I do because, you know, as we discussed earlier this month, and now I'm in my 50s, and it's the technology is getting worse. For me?
Okay.
No, technology is getting better.
Okay.
But for me,
for you,
operating technology is getting worse.
Okay.
And I, was needing to get a new phone, and I got a new phone, and there's new buttons, and there's new things.
Sorry, what? I'm empathizing with you.
So it's been a struggle. Just even trying to record this podcast. I, accidentally videoed multiple things that weren't supposed to be on the video.
Well, it happens when we get new things. I was telling you recently because I had to get a new car.
Yeah.
And so it's, it's very nice. It's obviously newer than the one that I had before. And so it's the same car, but newer version of it.
And it's red.
I know. I've always had like white or silver. I've never had
a red car. Jeff had a red Camaro when we started dating, and that was really what attracted me to him. that red Camaro.
I had a white Camaro when I was in my 20s and I was in college. Wow. But yes, actually, it's so pretty. But it supposedly has like a feature in the back to open the back. Oh, yeah. And it's like a kick feature where you're supposed to be able to put your foot underneath it, if you're
under the bumper, right?
Yeah, if your hands are full of groceries. Well, I have yet to figure out how to make it work. So I've just been this person standing behind my car with bags of groceries, kicking underneath my car. Look like an idiot, but I'm it's supposed to work, and sometimes it beeps, but it
never opens?
No, I need to do some research and figure out.
Demonstrate it to you?
No.
Or did they just tell you?
They just told me, and
off.
I didn't ask.
There's probably a toggle.
I need to do some research.
You're going to have to go into the screen that has 1,000 different options, and you're going to have to find the toggle button.
Surely I can just Google it.
You can. Of course, you can Google it.
Well, you could just figure it out for me when we're done here.
Oh, I could. You're right.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you're asking the least technological person to figure out technology.
But you're talking about it as if
I know.
Well,
because here's the thing. Well, I just like to tell people what to do in general. That's where, I'm saying just go toggle the button, Sarah. But, I feel like I can regurgitate things and say that's just there's a way, it's easy. But then when I actually try to do it,
know that it's true.
Yeah, don't know that it's true, and I also don't do it like it's easy. I feel like.
So it's a care effect.
What is that?
That's what I would always say when I would very assertively say something, or that something is very definitive, but then once I've realized it, I might add on, well, that's actually probably just a Sarah fact. I really believe it's true, but I don't actually know that I could substantiate it. So just say, that's a Sarah fact.
Make up your own story?
Yeah, but it feels, it's not an outright lie, but it sounds like I just said something that would hold up in a court of law. And then I'm actually saying, I don't know that that's the case, but I feel it deeply that there's a good chance that it's true. So it's a Sarah fact.
Well, I feel deeply that there's a toggle switch on your screen somewhere.
So that's a Sarah fact.
The only reason I say that is because I know, think way back when
when it was actually a toggle switch, because you keep saying toggle switch.
Well, the button, it toggles.
Okay.
They say that. These technology people say toggle the thing.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. You're giving me such a hard time today.
What?
Back when the whole technology first became a thing where your rear hatchback would go up and down with a button.
Okay.
An actual,
Yes.
I think there's still buttons in the car and
Yes.
stuff. There was a switch in my car that I didn't know to turn it on or off, and I didn't realize it had gotten turned off.
Okay.
And so, for weeks I'm like, this isn't working. So I take it into the dealership, and they're like, yeah, there's just a little button here that needed to be pushed. So I think there's a button on yours too.
Okay.
But it's not a real button. It's a button on a screen.
Right.
Because everything is.
Yes.
Everything.
For the most part.
Yeah. Is a button on a screen. It's
okay.
not a button. It's a touch.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
You know what is real?
What?
The strength of women that we've been talking about this month.
Yes.
They're
didn't have to deal with all these things, but they had their own things they had to deal with.
I bet dealing with donkeys was hard.
Yeah.
I bet riding a donkey when you're 9 months pregnant is hard.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
No.
You think that was like side saddle or just
it would have had to have been. Well, because I don't think women straddled horses back then.
Oh, at all.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. That feels like it'd be even harder and more uncomfortable.
Yeah, you would just slip right off.
Slide off. Of course, donkeys are shorter than horses, so
True.
You don't have as far to go.
Yeah.
If you slide off.
Still. That's surprised you're saying that. Someone who's been
thrown off a
far
horse.
thrown off a horse.
And my horse was very tall too, that threw me. But we are getting off track.
Back to Mary.
Mary rode a donkey 9 months pregnant, and that alone just
as a teenager.
Okay, well, see, now you just ruined it because like teenage bodies can kind of do anything.
Well, that's true.
So I don't feel as much sympathy.
Okay.
She was young and agile.
Young and agile.
But
never heard Mary, the mother of Jesus, described as agile. That's a first.
Any teenagers are just agile in general.
That's true.
So I think that her strength, though, is something that we can definitely look up to. And it's interesting because she was so young. I don't think that God picked her and chose her because she looked strong. I think she was chosen because she probably looked very meek and humble in his eyes, and she spent a lot of time worshiping him.
Yeah.
And so it's just another reminder, as we've talked about in the last couple of weeks, of just how God will give us his strength, but we've got to keep our eyes focused on him. And, we've got to be walking in the way he's calling us and not the way we want to go, right?
Absolutely.
Because Mary had a plan for her life.
Yeah.
And I feel pretty sure it didn't include having a baby before she was married.
Yeah.
Especially
this baby.
That's not easy now. In our culture now, that's not easy for anyone to endure, but back then she could have been stoned and killed. And so for her to say yes to this angel that was like, hey, you've been chosen, that was a lot. Yeah,
so from the very beginning, obviously I think most people are somewhat familiar with her story, if not deeply familiar with it, of an angel appearing to her when she was engaged to be married to Joseph, and letting her know that she'd been chosen by God and was going to carry a child that would be conceived through the power of the Holy Spirit, and that this baby would be the Messiah, would be the one that would be salvation. And so, I mean, it's unimaginable. It really, it on some level is impossible for our brains to really and truly understand that. But just think of the most imaginable, highest calling, terrifying, like just all the emotions and the way that we see Mary responds, like of just in agreement. And if this is what's to be done, then, she just, and so I love, that we're looking at her today, of just, like you said, her humility, her quiet strength, and just her faithfulness to just say, okay, God, if you're saying this is what we're doing, then okay, I'm in.
Yeah, I think it's super easy to read that story and think that it was just that easy, right? Because it's so beautiful, and what we know about her in Scripture is it's just this beautiful act of yielding to God. But there had to have been heart in there. I can't imagine. I know when our firstborn son was 4 months old at Christmas time, and I remember looking at him, and I remember having the thought, if I was Mary, I would have said, nope, sorry. change of plans. Like, we're not doing this, because the months she spent looking at this beautiful baby and knowing what was to come. I think Mary probably was one of the only people that had at least given up that preconceived notion that Jesus was coming as this like conquering king to take over a Roman government, because that's what the Jews thought and felt. I think she really had this understanding that there was going to be sacrifice in this journey.
Yes.
And, so it's beautiful, but it's hard.
Yeah. And so much of her story, we see kind of these two realities of there was a lot that she had to carry with this on her own. There are a few different times where it's referenced that there were things that she pondered in her heart. There were things that she saw, that she kind of knew, that she had a very different perspective from anyone else in the journey. And that there were things, I think, moments between her and the Lord where there was just an understanding that she knew. And it wasn't something that she could necessarily talk about because, Jesus had a hard enough time convincing people who he was when that time started.
Right.
And she knew that wasn't her calling, that wasn't part of her assignment. And so, but imagine like how difficult, like think about us now when we have like a piece of information that we know, you so want to tell people.
Right.
Now, in God's kindness, I think, we see that she had Elizabeth. She had Joseph, obviously, like the Lord, also spoke to Joseph in this process. And obviously we know Elizabeth had a great encounter and was also like having a child. And so in God's kindness, he gave her some safe spaces. And so there was even community in her journey. But there was a lot of isolation in that, of just stuff that she could ponder with the Lord, that it wasn't part of her story to go around, telling everybody who he was.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, we can think about this story somewhat like how our conversation with Rachel went last week, Rachel Joy, is that, God asked her to do something, but she didn't really know how the story was going to unfold. But she just said, yes, Lord, I am yours. I will do what you're asking. And that's what we see in Mary here. She's saying yes to something she knows is weighty, but she can't fully know what that's going to bring into her life. And just the human emotion, Mary was fully human, right? She was just chosen by God to be the vessel to bring Jesus into the world. And so she had to have wrestled with those human emotions. She wasn't perfect. She wasn't completely without sin. And so there had to have been just this wrestle of, okay, I said yes to this. And so now I don't really know how this is going to go, but I have to trust God with it.
Yeah. From the very beginning, not knowing even what it would hold with her and Joseph.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
I mean, everything suddenly was turned upside down in her life.
Yeah.
But I love then the relationship that we see with her and Jesus as you go through the Gospels and see the stories and see the fact that she was there throughout and obviously was there at the crucifixion. And so I think there's just so much from her life, kind of like a couple weeks ago when we talked about the Proverbs 31 woman. It's not that it's this idealistic thing that we want to strive to mimic. Yeah. But it's what are the characteristics of this woman that God has given us access to, and what can I take away from her story and the way that she lived her life.
Yeah, I think too, just like knowing the era that she was in, right? There would have been all this judgment from the outside, and I think every one of us can think of a circumstance in our life where we've done something and we've been misconstrued and judged wrongly for that. And what it feels like to just be sitting somewhat in isolation, and knowing that the community around you, the people around you, the people maybe at your church, at your work, at your school, whatever, are judging you for something that you didn't actually do wrong or mean to do. And so I think just having Elizabeth probably really also gave her such encouragement to say, like, you are doing the right thing. You are yielding to the Lord, and you can't look around at the world around you, right?
Yeah. I never thought about that part of it, but yeah, to have to be silent in all of that, because again, what are you going to say?
Right.
And you,
Yes, because it's not like there had ever been a virgin birth.
right.
So you can say all day long, I did not have relations with Joseph, but
Yeah,
everyone's going to
gonna,
say, yes, you did.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't make sense to the world around you.
Yeah. So there's nothing you can say, like you're saying, you just have to live in that space where you know certain people are thinking certain things, but you just have to choose to not let your mind focus there.
Yeah.
And that's an act of, man, self-discipline for sure. And I think, again, that's why I always go back to that phrase of, and Mary pondered these things in her heart. I just think her internal dialogue and prayer life with the Lord must have just been constant in that season. Because, I mean, where else was her strength going to come from in something like that?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like, similar to Mary, how she said yes to God without having the full plan? Do you feel like there's ever been a time in your life where God's asked you to do something and you said yes without a full understanding?
I do, actually. So when I've been at Valley Creek at our church for, I don't know, 12 or so years now, I think. But prior to that, for a decade, I was at a different church and was on staff there, and just at the time of my life, it was such a fun season. I went through like an 8-month process with the Lord, just in conversation with him, where he was kind of preparing me for something. I didn't know what. I thought it was going to be all these different things there. And then at the end of the day, it was, stepping out of my role on staff there, but staying there for a little while. And then about 6 months later, kind of the same process of him kind of starting to give me some direction. And it was that I was like stepping out of, and that was just the hardest thing I've ever done. And it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
I had a peace about it. It was clear to me because I had spent so long in that conversation that when there was an answer of what was next, it felt very sure to me, because there had just been this kind of unknown, and then there was like a step. And so I just took the step, and eventually that led me obviously to Valley Creek. It's the next church I went to. That wasn't my plan. I had a plan that I was going to like visit all these different places, and I had a system, and it was going to be great. And then just with a friend, I ended up coming with her on one Sunday because we were going to go eat lunch, and it was Valley Creek, and the Holy Spirit said home when I walked in. And then, of course, 6 months later or whatever, I met Paul and the kids, and we got married. And so that was 11 years ago. And so that was, again, I don't want to try to compare it to Mary, but it was definitely, it was a big unknown.
Yeah.
I did not know. And honestly, I mean, part of my mind naturally wondered, because I was, 34, 35, I wanted to be married. Sure. I wanted a family. So part of me wondered, but really and truly when I got to Valley Creek, because 12 years ago, we did not have the young adult, like, momentum and like...
Well, and you wouldn't have fallen into young adult.
Well, thanks.
You're
right.
Already on your way to oldish.
Golly. Anyway, all that to say, like, it felt at that time much more suburban family, 2.5 kids, picket fence, Labrador. Sure. So it felt like I was the only single person at the church when I got there in 2014 or whatever. Now I don't think it feels like that as much, and maybe it didn't then. Maybe that was just my perception.
Sure.
But so I remember when I did feel like he said, "This is where you're going to be." I thought that was him telling me I wasn't going to get married ever. That my life was just going to be ministry and him, and so that's why I was just like totally shocked when I did meet Paul, and so anyway. But that was probably the biggest time that it was. I had no idea, and part of what, and I have to assume this is what was true in Mary's life. I mean, I was so in the Word and in communication with God in such an unending way at that time. I lived by myself. And I can just remember my quiet times that morning, like for that whole year and a half. I was going through the book of Exodus and the life of Moses, and it was just rich. Like our conversation was just rich and detailed. And it's what made that move possible. Because I had a lot of fear and a lot of emotion and a lot of deep, deep sadness.
Yeah.
But I knew that he had spoken. It wasn't like I just one day had a thought. It was that first journey was 8 months of just knowing that he was saying something and preparing me for something. And so I think the big takeaway for that, for me and just for all of us, is if we want to be able to say yes to big things like that, the way that we can do it confidently and with peace is if we are in that rich, deep, ongoing conversation with him. That that's just a natural part of our lives where we're sensing what he's doing and what he's saying.
Yeah. No, I think that's so beautiful. I love that story because it really highlights just having that deep communication with the Lord where you can confidently hear him and know that he's telling you something and then walk into it without fear.
Yeah.
You know, and again, I know there were human fears that crept into Mary's mind, just like there were for you, but it's like this, yes, there's this fear of the unknown, but there's also a greater fear of like, if I don't walk the way the Lord's telling me, because there's a phrase my mom always uses and I love it. It is God's perfect will and God's permissible will. And, you know, we know all things work together for good. Like I can just say the little verse that's on the pillow.
Yes.
But the Lord is constantly working on our behalf. So it's not like you can make the wrong choice necessarily because he will use it for your good and his glory. But man, when we make the choice that he's asked us to make and walk that path, just the peace and abundance that come with it are overwhelming. So do you feel like your personality, like you have struggled to surrender?
At times, sure. I think it probably depends on what it is I'm being asked to lay down, you know, because sometimes my flesh is in agreement, you know, with the spirit, and then other times probably not. So I think it's probably a mixed bag. I think, you know, at this stage of life, it feels like most of the big things, if you're thinking about, you know, who rules finances, who rules big decisions that we make and kind of the way that we orient our lives and do business and things like that. But so I think sometimes it can actually get more difficult because it becomes some of the smaller decisions that can feel more like, I just thought that could be mine, or you know, I thought this maybe was an area. And so I that's how it's felt like for me, is as it's gotten smaller and more specific, sometimes that does feel a little bit harder. How about for you?
Yes. Yes, my personality is definitely, I say I'm combative. That's just, it's not out of a nature of wanting to fight. It's out of a nature of just questioning and, you know, I've already made plans in my head. So typically though, for me now, I feel like if God asks me to do something sort of out of the blue, we'll call it out of the blue.
He just has an idea one day.
I feel like I'm a little more like, oh, that's exciting. Let's do that. You know, but it's like if I'm asking him about something, I've sort of already made up a story in my head of how this should go. And I'm going to ask you for your opinion. You should agree with me. And then he
kind of
asks
like,
me,
this is a rhetorical question.
Yeah. You know, then he asks me to go a different way. You know, I'm typically a little more like pushback. I say that now. I remember a time when the Lord asked me to do something 20 years ago, and I literally said, no, thank you. I do not want to do that. And it was a very clear, I asked you to do that. You know, it wasn't like a mean, like I'm gonna zap you, but it was just clear. Like I asked you to do that. And it's like that. It's hard, I know, for people who haven't had a father that have had a loving relationship. I fortunately had that. And there were times and places where I could hear the tone in my dad's voice or see the look in his eyes. And I knew I should go ahead and yield to what he was asking, not out of a fear of being zapped, but more of just like a, man, he loves me and I need to trust his heart on this. And so, I feel like that's kind of the place I'm at now with the Lord. That doesn't mean that tomorrow I might not say, I might say no again. I tend to have this like dialogue.
Yeah.
No, thank you. And
No,
God's
thank you.
like, okay, well, look, this is the way this is going to go. And I'm like, no, maybe next week. No, like today. And, so there's this dialogue. I think I generally always get to the place where I'm like, yes, let's do it. But it takes a little pushing. Yeah. And I don't know what that is about me and my heart, but I mean, I love him passionately and I want to do what he wants me to do. But in my humanity, I just sometimes get stuck in what I want to do.
Yeah.
And
I get that.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And so Mary, in this situation, I think that would have been a real struggle for me. So
yeah.
It's a thing for
sure.
I
don't think there's anyone who can look at that and be like, oh yeah, just not in the reality of what that actually would have meant.
No, for sure.
So have you ever had a season where obedience felt costly to you?
Yes. Obedience feels costly right now.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like there's areas in my life where I want to be in control.
Sensing a theme.
Yeah, you're right. There is a theme. I want to be in control and I want to tell people how things should go. And I'm having to really just kind of close my mouth and not do that. And, it's interesting. I told you recently that it's been a season where you've talked about on this podcast how you would meditate at night on be still and know that I am God. And then we had Jill Miller on in March. Yes, we were talking about spiritual disciplines. Yes, March. And she talked about how that be still passage, how one of the meanings of be still is to hold your peace.
Yes.
And so I've actually been falling asleep at night saying that, hold your peace and know that he is God. And just taking a breath because, I do want to be in control. It's a thing. I know it's a thing.
It's
my mom told me I came out bossy and, it's not in a way that I'm trying to be bossy and mean. It's just my personality. I feel like I love people well in it. It's more of a protective, like I want to protect my people.
Yeah, it's not a flaw. It's something that God's given you as a strength when it's
needed.
Used in the way that he wants you to use it.
Yes, but when I am not yielding to him,
right,
it is definitely a flaw. And that's a whole other subject that we could get on someday, is that I really feel like every one of our strengths are also our greatest weakness, but they all reflect God.
Yes.
It's just he has that perfectly and we don't.
Yes, and the enemy has a plan for that part of us
exactly.
as well.
Yes. Yeah. And the enemy's plan is for me to not yield.
Yeah. We're going to use our gifts for evil or for good.
Right. Yeah. And so it's definitely the season right now where obedience feels costly, and it is a struggle for me. And I think it's God's perfect plan for it to be a struggle, because that is a weakness for me, where it sounds like a strength. Like it sounds like, oh, I'm strong and I want to be in charge and be bossy, but it's not. That's a huge weakness that if I don't lay down at his feet, then it's going to hurt people. And so it's more of just like saying, okay, I want to be strong in him. I don't want to be strong in my own strength. And so just taking that and laying it at his feet on a regular and consistent basis. Yeah. So I think I think it creates for us a space like it did for Mary to ponder, the things of God, instead of just like pushing past what he wants to do. Because what I'm wanting to control is things that I think are the outcome's not going to be good. And I know that the people in my life, he loves them more than I do. And so it gives me space to sit back and ponder his ways and his plan and his things, and to take them to him and just pray about them.
And that's such a good reminder of it's about remembering his character.
Yeah.
And so when there is something that we're asked to do, we talked about this even with the Proverbs 31 woman stuff, of any time that we feel like we interpret something or receive something that makes us struggle or feel like there's a striving, is that like, okay, I've got my wires crossed a little bit, because based on God's character and who he is, I know he's good, and I know that I can put my faith and my trust in him. And so whatever he's asking of me has to be good. And I think that takes practice and repetition.
Yeah.
What do you think it looks like to carry the things that God has entrusted you with in your life with care?
I think it looks like an invisible strength. People can't see the carrying of it. You know what I mean? Yes, people may know about your situation and your circumstances, but like we talked about with the Proverbs 31 woman, everything that's kind of talked about there are things that are seen, but none of the seen can be done without the unseen.
Right.
And so anything that we do in public, in the light, first has to happen, in private, in the quiet, in our prayer closet, in the space with God. It's, again, Rachel Joy's story. She couldn't have started this ministry and done these things if there hadn't been preparation in the quiet, in the invisible places to the world.
Yeah.
And so I think in order to carry that weight, we have to be okay with having the time with the Lord where it's unseen.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Like, I think that's kind of the theme that we keep coming back to with Mary of, why she was able to give the answer that she gave. I think was because this wasn't, the angel obviously was a stranger to her, but like God wasn't a stranger to her. This wasn't some unknown deity that was asking something of her. I think she had to have had a very real personal relationship with God and an awe and reverence. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. She had an awe and reverence for who God was. And obviously I think she knew the stories of the Old Testament of, who God had been. And so she knew his character. And so I just have to believe that's why she was able to give the answer and walk out the journey that she did.
Yeah.
And so I think that really more than anything, it's almost like it's not even so much about the story from that point on, from, the conversation with the angel. I really feel like now that we're talking about it, to me, it's more about what must those years have been like leading up to that conversation.
Yeah.
That almost feels like where God's kind of taken my heart as we've looked at her life.
I love that. Well, I think that this week is just a resonating theme from our 3 weeks that we've had so far in May, of just how God isn't asking us to come to him and do the things he's asked us to do perfectly. He's not asking us to already have all our stuff together. He's just saying, come and be willing, and that is where we are going to have his strength, is when we just are like willing to do what he's asking.
Yes.
So I think that is just such a good way to wrap up our discussion about Mary, and just thinking back on the Proverbs 31 woman. And again, I was so inspired by Rachel's story last week, of just all God has done through her, just because of her willing heart. And so it's just a reminder to us all, God may not have called you to lead a huge ministry, but he has called you to lead somewhere.
Yes.
And whether that is you're a stay-at-home mom, whether that is you're a caretaker for someone and you're quietly doing the daily work in your home and it feels unseen, God sees.
Yes.
If you're a C-suite executive, if you are a pastor, if you are just leading a women's group, like anything that we're doing in our life, we are leaders.
Yes.
Because we are believers. We have the power to walk into a room and bring peace to chaos. We have the power to speak words of life over people. And so in any situation that we encounter, we've got to remember we can lead in that situation.
Absolutely. I love that. So good.
Yeah.
So how are you going to enjoy the life that God gave you this week?
Well,
Yeah.
Okay.
No, go ahead and say it. It's fine. Tell everybody what you're doing to me.
Leaving on a little trip.
A little trip.
A little trip.
Okay.
Just
without me. Am I going?
No.
No, I'm not going.
No,
You're
Jeff
leaving
didn't
me.
invite you.
He didn't.
I invited you.
You did.
Jeff
but
uninvited you.
Jeff vetoed that. He nixed that, which, I'm okay. I will be over it by the time you get back, I'm sure.
This happened back in March too, but that was a shorter trip.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so we're leaving the country. We are going on a cruise. But good news for you. I thought it was 24 days. It's only 21.
Okay.
We're going to be gone 21 days.
Doesn't make me feel better.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
So we are doing a little pre-recording
Yep.
for the podcast.
Yes.
But we're still going to give you our heart and soul. But
Yes.
I'm going to be gone
Yes.
to Greece for
Yes.
21 days.
So we won't have me just sitting here sad and crying.
I mean, you could do that.
No, let's not do that. That'd be a bummer, I feel like, for everybody.
Yeah, and
And for
plus
me.
people listening might feel sorry for you and want to be your friend, and like I don't need you
I could have
making
some,
a
like,
new best friend while
special
I'm
guests
out of
while you're
town.
gone. Okay.
Well, you could have
But their
special
name has to
guests.
rhyme with Sarah. Like,
Oh,
while you're
valid.
gone.
Okay. If anyone's listening whose name rhymes with Sarah, we have an opening for a temporary podcast host.
Oh, my
What are
goodness.
you going to do to enjoy the life God's given you?
Well, it's going to be hard this week since my BFF is leaving me for so long. But it is Memorial Day weekend. So really, we're getting into the time of the year where I just find so much joy sitting by the pool, just relaxing, reading a book. And so that's, there's nothing, sometimes we're kind of last minute with stuff. We kind of figure out everybody's around. And so we may have some family over. But for the most part, it's just, I'll cry a little bit, but then I'll console myself with some sunshine and hopefully. And so, I'll be okay.
Yeah. It always feels weird to me. There have been a couple of like national holidays we've traveled on, like out of the country, and it always feels so weird.
Because they don't celebrate.
Well, because they don't celebrate it, and then also you feel like you've missed part of your year.
Yeah.
I know that seems strange, but it's
No,
like
it doesn't.
One year we were in South Africa on July 4th, and it was just so weird. It was like, did July 4th happen?
Well, here's what's so funny is I went to Australia one summer, and when you fly to Australia from here to there, you lose a day.
Okay.
So I left on July 2nd, got there on July 4th.
Oh.
So left here on the 3rd, got there on the 5th.
Okay.
So I literally
You
didn't
lost July
have
4th?
a July 4th. Because your flight is so long, plus the time change, you lose a day.
That's crazy.
And so, so I remember that was just so crazy that summer that literally didn't have a July 4th.
Wow.
Like it didn't happen. It was
That
so
is
weird.
so
and then of course
weird.
you get the day back kind of when you come home. But it was very odd.
Yeah, that is very odd. Well, I'll be here for July 4th.
Okay.
So I'll have a July 4th. I just won't have a Memorial Day this year.
Well, and we're actually, so in March, you mentioned a while ago that we talked about the spiritual disciplines.
Yeah.
One of which is Sabbath.
Yes.
And so we are actually going to Sabbath a little bit this summer. We haven't talked about that yet. And so we'll have a little Sabbath in the month of July.
Mm-hmm. Our podcast. Will Sabbath.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're going to Sabbath.
We are, but also our
podcasting,
podcast
which
is.
means
Yeah.
the podcast will Sabbath. And to kind of reset to launch back into season 2. And so we'll talk more about that coming up, but just kind of a heads up that we'll Sabbath for the month of July.
Yeah, I know. That's going to be good.
Yeah.
But we still have the rest of May and all of June.
Yes.
And so that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes.
I've really enjoyed this, and I know we're going to enjoy June. We'll talk about that next week. And until then, go enjoy
the life God gave you.
Yep. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for spending time with us today on That's Why We're Friends.
We hope you laughed, felt encouraged, and are walking away with a little more hope for your day.
If you love this episode, make sure to follow the podcast so you never miss what's next.
And share it with a friend who needs a little encouragement, because that's why we're friends.
Some products or services we mention may be paid promotions. Any advice shared should be confirmed with a qualified professional. Our conversations and opinions are meant for encouragement and entertainment only.